Okay, this is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. There's been a lot of activity late into Friday night around the Nancy Guthrie story. SWAT teams moving in, people being arrested. There is a report that somebody either was shot or shot themselves. It's unclear as to what went on with that. I'm going to run part of the open and then I'll be back in a second. All right, well, let's get into it. So, clearly something's going on in Nancy Guthrie story here. The SWAT teams have moved in apparently in Tucson, Arizona. There's a lot going on here. There's a few YouTube channels who are trying to transmit police activity. In fact, there's one particular YouTube channel, this one right here, that is just a running
Okay.
audio of police traffic, which
Go for it.
I knew that you could do that
Of
through
course,
an app, but you apparently can do it right through YouTube as well. You just have a picture of a little transmitter up, and they're running the police activity, which I actually don't think is a great idea. But because of course the bad guys could be listening to this, so not sure that's a great idea. So that's been going on, but more broadly, there's been a bunch of police activity with regard to a SWAT team moving in. There is a live feed that somebody has on the scene here, once again in Pima County. And that live feed just has a shot of the scene generally, but it would appear to be fairly far away. It looks to me like a shot that's not particularly close up to the scene. I suspect at 7 o'clock there's going to be a lot of activity, a lot of talking online. I mean, effectively, all the real news shows come on at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I would expect that they would start with this. I did look at CNN. MSNBC has basically a Morning Joe thing going. It's like a tape. It's interesting, but it's not live coverage. And then we have, in fact, to be honest, I mean, there's better live coverage on YouTube. And then we have the reports from late last night, a slew of reporting from late last night of what was going on in terms of just various reports of a SWAT team moving in, and then there was a tarp that was held up in
And we
front
don't want to
of
reveal and we don't want to reveal our
a tarp that was
yeah,
held
Kate.
up in front of the
And
back
we don't
of
want to
a
reveal our
Range
location.
Rover. That was interesting, and you couldn't tell what was going on, but there was two cops, basically shielding the scene. You can kind of see actually through the tarp that they were holding up. There's a lot of folks that are doing true crime shows. Brian Enton is one of the best ones. He was on News Nation late last night. He didn't want to give his location away, which again is a smart thing. You don't want to actually interfere with a police investigation in something this serious when somebody's missing. There was news yesterday of a ransom note, another amount of money being demanded, which is crazy. This is a little piece of Brian Enton last night talking about what was going on.
Active SWAT situation happening right now. Earlier, I reported that the SWAT team was staging. They have now moved in on a house in Pima County. And again, we're keeping our lights off because we're very, very close to where this is happening. And we don't want to interfere at all. And we don't want to reveal our location, obviously. We don't want to compromise the investigation. But I know that they have already, from what I can tell, pulled two people out of a house. And I know that this is connected to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. That I have confirmed. Whether this is going to pan out into something significant or whether we're going to sort of see what happened the other night with the man who was detained and then released, that I cannot tell you.
Yeah, and I'm just stopping that not because I want to be annoying, but because I have a copyright, requirement not to play that entire thing. I'm going to be putting the links in the comments to some of these things if people want to bounce to that. The first link I'm putting in the comments is the one of the rolling police traffic that somebody has just put up on YouTube. That's kind of useful because if something, happens and there's some excitement on the radio, you can tell something's up. But someone does have that up on YouTube, which is a fairly helpful thing if something's happening. It can be actually kind of boring, but obviously if there's news, it won't be boring at all. The next link I'm going to put up is the one I was just showing, which is News Nation. Brian Enton, who of course has his own YouTube channel for true crime. But News Nation had Brian on last night. He's really, really good. He's on the scene and he is a lot of times live. In fact, I'll go and check for his channel in a few seconds. That link is up if people want to bounce to that. But I will play a few more things here because there are some really interesting reports from last night.
And we don't want to reveal our location.
And
we don't want to reveal our location.
the reports from last night really sort of blew up, but
law enforcement
it being a Friday,
law enforcement vehicle,
nobody could really focus Friday night, obviously going into Valentine's Day. Hello to a fur cub. And it's Valentine's Day. And there's a lot going on, but this unfortunately might be, I don't know if this is good news or bad news. This whole thing has been bad news, frankly. This has been a terrible story, the Nancy Guthrie story. It's just a terrible story. But at any rate, this is Fox last night. Fox News is covering this very, very, they're covering this all day long.
Is now live from the scene in Tucson, Arizona, Fox News correspondent Max Gordon. What's the latest, Max?
Hey there, John. Well, it's been a very active night here in the Tucson area for law enforcement. A lot of developments in the Nancy Guthrie case. Let's get you up to speed. So this all started for us. We first heard wind of this at around 8:30 p.m. local time. That's when we were getting some rumors that there's some law enforcement activity very close to Nancy Guthrie's house. We drove on over here. It was only about a 5-minute drive, about 2 miles driving, and that's where we saw a very heavy law enforcement presence. That's where we later learned 3 people were detained, 2 males, and then 1 woman who is the mother of one of those 2 males, detained at a house in this neighborhood. This is a very upscale neighborhood. A lot of these homes listed on Zillow for more than $1 million. And since we've been here, over the past couple of hours, we've seen a lot of vehicles, law enforcement vehicles, going through this barricade. You can see behind me 2 SWAT team vehicles leaving the scene, and then several unmarked vehicles, potentially FBI vehicles, going on in, a whole convoy of them, really.
Now, what you don't see is a coroner's vehicle. You don't see an ambulance. There is a phone number in the corner of the screen, by the way, 1-800-CALL-FBI for the tip line, 1-800-CALL-FBI. And then there's another sheriff tip line down there, 1-520-351-4900. Obviously a lot going on here. This is the link to the Fox News report. Again, I can't play too much of it without getting dinged, but getting a copyright strike or something like that. But I certainly will put the tip line information. I would like to put the tip line information in the chat, or I'll just say it again. So it's 1-800-CALL-FBI. It's so easy to remember, 1-800-CALL-FBI. At any rate, this is this again. I'm on the East Coast, and in 1 minute, everybody should be resetting their coverage. Hopefully, CNN will say something about this. I suspect they will. A lot of people saw Jake Tapper and a few other CNN correspondents on the scene of this during the week. Obviously, during the week of Nancy Guthrie news was included them picking up the wrong guy. There's some dude that they picked up that hadn't done anything and he was innocent. That was a big mess. There does seem to be kind of a feeling growing that maybe there's some confusion between law enforcement agencies, between the federal agency, the FBI, and the local police. We haven't seen too much from the local police lately. You remember in the beginning of this story, we had a local sheriff who was really out there talking to the press. And then he got real quiet. And I'm not sure what that was. They just stopped talking. Then yesterday, I believe he was on television. He had an interview on a show where he was talking, and it was like, what is going on here? Chris Nanos. Chris Nanos is the Pima County Sheriff. I don't know what's going on with that. I think that he either somebody told him to shut up, or maybe he said to himself, I need to be quiet. I'm going to play a little of that. That was about 10 hours ago. But I feel like there is some confusion going on here about who's in charge of the investigation, all that. There's just something that's up that you can't quite put your finger on.
that a mobile command unit has been deployed, and we are attempting to confirm if there is a connection with that deployment and the case. Tonight, we're bringing...
Let's go past that. Let's go over to the interview with the sheriff. That's right here.
That morning, 8, 9 o'clock, we also knew that we had some hard evidence, some cameras and phones that we know that the FBI is good at. How do we know that? Because we work right in their building. We have officers assigned to them for years, for decades, and we work closely with them. And we said to the FBI that morning, hey, can you take this and do absolutely, Sheriff, whatever you need.
All right. So this story did start on February 1. It's in day 14, and I can see that CNN is starting with this story. I don't think they're saying anything any different than anyone else is on YouTube, which is effectively that there was a big police involvement last night that ramped up with regard to SWAT coming in with a bunch of vehicles. I don't see CNN saying anything different. I'm just looking with the sound down. I'm about to turn it up a little bit. But at any rate, I don't think they have any new information, any announcements or anything breaking news on the screen right now with regard to the Nancy Guthrie case. I think, as most people know, this started on February 1, 2026. She disappeared somewhere between the last day of January and February 1. Savannah Guthrie, of course, a well-known anchor on NBC, The Today Show, immediately, of course, flew to her mother's house in Arizona and then made a few announcements on social media with her siblings. And now we have CNN saying, yes, authorities swarm area 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house.
Authorities cleared out, reopened roads just before 4 Eastern this morning. The Sheriff's Department said a statement would be released soon. Ahead of this operation, the said that they've gotten thousands of tips about the case.
We've had 18,000 calls.
Okay, so they have the sheriff, the same video I was just playing where the sheriff says that they've gotten 18,000 tips. They do say that there is an announcement coming soon. Remembering I'm on the East Coast, they're on the West Coast, so they're at 4 in the morning. This apparently, all the SWAT activity, according to CNN, started somewhere in the 3 a.m. hour East Coast time. So that would be like midnight or, on the West Coast. So if they're doing some sort of an announcement, I suspect that's not going to be happening for another 3 or 4 hours, at the very least 3 or 4 hours.
Law enforcement activity we've seen in this 2-week-long investigation and search for the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. This neighborhood is part of Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood. You can access it without reaching any of the major roads.
So again, CNN is just reporting and putting on, pictures on of big vehicles going down the road. Again, they have the same, they literally have the same shot as this shot right here, the same camera view of as this shot right here, standing in the same location. Apparently it's raining out there. It's rain all over the place out there. And so this is what's going on. There's not a whole lot to say, and there's not a whole lot to say until they make a statement, until the authorities make a statement. Who knows what's going on, right? I mean, it would seem to me that if they found something, or if this is the end of the case, then obviously they have to notify the family first. They're not going to go right on TV with something that traumatic. But who knows? Nobody really knows what's going on. And there hasn't been a real debrief by authorities in several days. Of course, there's been footage found of a person at the door that was released by the police. The person at the door who disables the camera at the home of Nancy Guthrie. Then I think it was yesterday, it was reported that 2 people who clean pools came and did something at the pool at the house of Nancy Guthrie. They would appear to be not draining the pool, but they were in some way, I guess, I don't want to say inspecting, because the law enforcement officer was sort of just watching them. It was sort of hard to tell what they were doing. There were several overhead shots of what they were doing, but clearly there was some examination of the pool at Nancy Guthrie's house. And again, I don't know that the media has gotten a real clear briefing from the police in days, and there hasn't been a real Q&A. And so a lot of people are running around trying to figure out what's going on. A lot of the true crimers who are out there, a lot of true crimers out there uh, are actually, I think, providing much better coverage than some of these major networks. One of the reasons why the news business is having trouble. But at any rate, one of those true crimers is Brian Enton, who is quite good. And 2 hours ago, he was live streaming. He wasn't just he wasn't on somebody else's show. He was on his own show, and I'm just going to play a little bit of that because he's one of the best out there, who is, of course, on the scene.
Checking out my show, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. What a night it has been. There has been a SWAT situation that I've been covering for the last 3 or 4 hours. I was inside the perimeter because we were following the SWAT team. We got in, and we know that at least one person has been detained. The neighborhood is still all closed down. It's raining out here. It's the first time it's rained since I've been in Tucson for almost 2 weeks. So I'm going to walk you through everything that happened tonight, the latest developments. Is this possibly a break in the case? Everything that I saw, I'm getting into all of it, the latest on the Nancy Guthrie investigation in this episode.
So we know this was 2 hours ago. So we know that we don't have a conclusion in the case that we know of. That Brian N video, I am going to link in the chat. Again, I can't play all of it because I don't want to be stealing his stuff, but he's great. He is great. But the link is in the chat if people want to bounce to Brian Enton. That was about 2 hours ago. So now we're, at so it's probably something like boy, that had to be 4 in the morning. That had to be actually 2 in the morning, Pima County time. And so by now we know that there's been no announcement. There's no announcement, like I said, on CNN this morning. And let me see if I can see what Fox is doing, because Fox has been covering this very, very steadily for the last week. And they, if anybody has anything new, they would have it. And they are very diligent in their coverage. They've got people on the scene and all sorts of stuff going on. Let me see what's going on with Fox.
Have a tempo to them. I call them a battle rhythm, but they do have fits and starts. And you get a hot lead and you run with it, but that doesn't mean you stand down all the other leads. Now let's think about this warrant they executed last night. That's a special circumstance warrant, and why is that? Typically, when you get a search warrant, you have to go to a magistrate or a judge. You have to lay out a fact pattern. You have to articulate particularities on why you believe a particular piece of.
Okay, well, Fox News has a former FBI guy on. There's been a lot of former law enforcement, thankfully, who've been commenting on this case, and their expertise has been incredibly valuable. Right now, Fox News has James Gagliano on. This is on broadcast, not on YouTube. And he is saying that there was some sort of special circumstance warrant that was used apparently last night to move into whatever action this was last night that involved SWAT vehicles and people with FBI jackets. But there is no specificity with regard to exactly what happened. There's only a bunch of rumors online. And frankly, that's typically where news breaks, particularly with Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter and not X. But at any rate, typically what we find out there. And typically what we find out, it's usually Tom Winter or one of the true crimers that breaks the story. Tom Winter of NBC has been quite quick. I think certainly that's because he's just plugged into the best sources, and he is a reliable reporter that people know is not going to mess it up. You know what I mean? And I think that he's somebody who is trusted. So he just gets the news first. But he hasn't tweeted anything since Feb 12. Let me see if he replied to anything. Yeah, he hasn't tweeted in a few days. Well, actually, one day, because it's really the 13th. I mean, we're just getting into the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. This video from TMZ. TMZ is another leader in this story in terms of getting things out quickly. Whether they've been correct all the time is another story, but it's difficult when people are lying and people are criminals and people are kidnappers and they send fake ransom notes and all the things that TMZ has had to deal with. You do have to check things, but at the same time, it's clearly somebody was playing games with TMZ. Tom Winter does have a really good tweet here with regard to the backpack scene. in the video of the person who approached Nancy Guthrie's home. And that video, of course, was about 2 days ago. And a lot of people have seen a lot of these images of the backpack. It is a very specific backpack, Ozark Trail, and identified, I suspect, by the true crimers. Although, yes, Phoenix FBI put these photos up. But I mean, like I said, the true crimers a lot of times are quicker than anybody else. This was the individual on the Nest camera. And of course, we all learned too that Nest is keeping our footage. What a surprise that the tech companies are keeping our footage. In this case, we like the fact that they kept the footage because hopefully that leads to somebody getting arrested in this case of the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. But it is interesting to learn that that Nest is keeping people's footage. At any rate, this was the picture, one of many pictures of this person with this ski mask who looks extremely dangerous and crazy coming up to the door of Nancy Guthrie. It would appear on the night of Feb 1. There is an estimate that he's 5'9", 5'10", but the Ozark Trail backpack has gotten a lot of attention, as one would imagine. Once again, Fox just has a round table going on here and talking about a massive police search. I would expect that there would be no announcement of anything until, of course, West Coast time, which is about 3 hours from now, 10 o'clock, something like that. And there isn't a whole lot of updating here. Let me just search the Nancy Guthrie hashtag. And this case is really just really a shocking situation. I mean, it really is a shocking situation, terrible situation. And as you can see, some of the true crimers out there are having, here's the FBI tip line. A lot of true crimers are talking about sketches, and it's hard to do any of that when somebody has a ski mask on, obviously. It's a difficult situation. Everybody wants to catch whoever the hell set forth this craziness, because it is in fact craziness that an 84-year-old woman minding her own business disappears on Feb 1, and we find out that that person is the mother of a prominent journalist. Obviously, Savannah Guthrie is a person of means. I think her salary is $10 million a year, but I do find it extremely strange that of all the people in the world, this is the person who is picked out. I'm one of the people who suspects that this is somebody close to the family or somebody close in the neighborhood that knows what's going on. This is not some professional thing that we're seeing. This is gonna, I think, end up being somebody in the neighborhood or even in the family, somebody close by. But I am surprised. I will say I am surprised that this has been going on. This story's been going on now for quite a while. 14 days is a lot. 14 days is a lot. And again, a lot of theories. We don't know if any of these people are guilty of anything that are on the screen right now. There is no proof of that. But people have all sorts of theories about who these individuals are. It's really hard to tell, really hard to guess. I would say impossible to guess when you can't see the person's face. The backpack is all that everybody has. Now everybody is looking in on this Range Rover. And the Range Rover apparently has a lineage that people are looking up. It's got dealer tags on it. So everybody's looking up the Range Rover, and now people are looking up the MGM Motors webpage of the Range Rover that the police were holding up the tarp last night and trying to block the view. They had the back of the Range Rover hatch open and two sheriff's deputies holding up tarp to block the block whatever they were doing in the back of the Range Rover. I have people asking, the obvious question of how did this person get in? How did this person get into the house? Who knows? I mean, I don't know that it's particularly difficult to break into a house. I just don't think it is. I mean, if you use enough force, you can break into a house. But this whole thing of disabling the cameras and all that, it is something that obviously requires a little bit of planning. And it is interesting that this person came with obviously a plan. They came with ski masks, they came with gloves, they came with backpack, they came with all that stuff. Okay, the person who got a close up of the FBI agent prepping swabs, blood test, best coverage. Yeah, you're right. Let's find out who that person is so I can send that link out. Yeah, Miss Chanel. Mrs. Chanel, thanks for the comments. Tested the blood in the Range Rover. That's all. The news showed close up the FBI. Yeah, there is a very close up view of the back of the Range Rover. Very close up view, and you can see somebody's hand. And so again, you don't know whether this is going to lead to anything, even though we see all this excitement and you see the cars and the SWAT team and the police vehicles, and all of that indicates that this was a lead or a tip that clearly got their attention, and they ran out and followed it, which I do think you have to do when somebody's life is at stake. I mean, it does have to be some quick action sometimes by law enforcement, and even if it turns out to be the wrong person, you got to move when you have to move. So it doesn't surprise me, and I'm not going to be criticizing law enforcement if this isn't the right person or if this isn't it. And there is a report that there was some gunfire, somebody shot themselves. It's hard to, there's no confirmation of that. There's a lot of activity online about someone either shooting themselves or being shot at this scene. I don't know if that's accurate. I'm just going off of what is being reported and what is being talked about online. And again, we have a mix of veteran reporters at legacy media outlets. Then we have the true crimers, the Brian Entons out there who really are on the scene, following every second from their car, from their vehicle, really on top of what's going on. And then we just have folks on Twitter who are just sort of speculating, some of that speculation has been quite useful and some of that speculation has been incorrect. It's hard to cover a case like this from this type of a distance and really know what's going on. As somebody who's been in journalism for years, you realize when you get to a scene of something that you see a bunch of things that you can't see from people's cameras, even though people are very comprehensive about their coverage and about what they show you. It's very hard to figure out like what really is going on in a given situation unless you are on the scene. Brian Enton is on the scene. His link to his page is in the chat. There is reports on Fox News of massive police activity, which I think most people certainly can see at this point. There's a lot going on out in Pima County right now, and whether or not this is a break in the case, whether or not they've caught somebody, I feel like if they were, if they had caught somebody, it shouldn't take them that long to tell the family what's going on and then tell the media what's going on. It shouldn't take more than a few hours, but they do have to have time to question people. They do have to have time to investigate people. They do have to have time to figure out who everybody is. Fox has some really nice footage here up of FBI taking pictures of the back of this Range Rover. And that's how I think everybody found out that there were dealer tags. And then, we're investigating the Range Rover, the location of the Range Rover, etc., and so on. There's a lot of, photos coming out, activity, all sorts of things happening, but no confirmation of anything one way or the other in this case, or whether or not the case is developing, still being investigated. Looks like to me it's still being investigated. I think we'd have heard something by now, even though it's only been 4 or 5 hours ago. The case is so widely covered by so many people who are on the scene. Just seems to me one of them would have broken something by now. Obviously, Brian Enton isn't getting any sleep. Excuse me. And if something was going on, I think he would have. In fact, let me go look to see if Brian Enton is up doing something, because he might be live right now. But it is something that is, people want to know what is going on with this case. It's been going on for 14 years. I'm sorry, 14 days. 14 days. It feels like 14 years. It's been going on for a while now, and you would think you'd have a break in the case. And as somebody whose father was in law enforcement in New York, I'm spoiled. In New York, in these bigger departments, they really do find out things very quickly. And this case just feels like it's been going on a long time. And even though we don't know for sure that there's some problems with regard to law enforcement, or maybe some disagreement on what's going on. You don't know who's getting the tips, what's going on, whether or not the tips are going to, I suspect, are going to the FBI, because that FBI number is so easy to remember. But when we find out things on day 2 and 3 of the story, that Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker was disconnected and things like that, things that are traceable. I think she had a smartwatch as well. Um, you know, that is worrisome, and it's been 14 days, it's been a while. There are some things that are some pretty big hints and clues. I don't think that the police properly sealed off the crime scene in the very beginning of this story. I think that had some concerns, and there's a lot going on here. Let's take a look at this.
Let's not share anything. Is there anything that we can take away from that?
No, not really. The analogy would be, you decide, you and your spouse, you decide, you talk to somebody, you say, hey, I'm going to tell you about this. And all of a sudden your wife comes in and says, maybe we shouldn't, and here's why. So then you just have to say, hey, you know what? You're right. And so you stop the statement. They're working in collaboration with each other. I don't see them in conflict. One, maybe depending upon what they found. First, they said they're going to release it. Then they found something of evidentiary value at the residence or in that car that they picked up, and they decided.
So this is a discussion about exactly what we were just talking about, which is whether or not there is cooperation between local police and the FBI. That is an open question, and I think we're going to be hearing more about that. Unfortunately, there does seem to be some sort of disconnect or something going on between the local police and the FBI. Some of that, I think, can be evidenced by the fact we haven't heard from the local police. It has the feeling of maybe the FBI told the local police, stop talking, stop saying stuff. you know, Stop talking, don't say anything, and just be quiet. Might have been one of the directives, because it just, there's a feeling there of unease. Now we're not seeing the Pima County Sheriff as much, and we are seeing the FBI out there, but not really doing any press conferences. We're just seeing their activity. But again, I don't know that we can deduct anything from that necessarily, because the police are involved in an active investigation. And when they're involved in an active investigation, they're not going to stop everything and say, okay, well, let's talk to the media. They typically make an announcement after everything is over and after everything has been figured out, and then they come out and they announce something. So I don't know, but the Pima County Sheriff sure as heck got quiet. A guy who was doing press conferences in the very beginning, and we see a crime scene and all this, I'm not sure he completely realized what he was involved in, and the largeness of what he was involved in. And I would say that he probably didn't. And I think by day 3, he realized, oh, wait a minute, this is a national story that's blowing up, and I'm at the center of it. And he was at the center of it. And then all of a sudden he sort of disappeared in the last week. But they did, of course, release the footage of the person at the door, the person at the door with the ski mask, one of the most haunting images that you'll ever see. And it sends chills down everybody's spine to think about their parent being at home and somebody approaching the door, like that, dressed in a freaking ski mask with a backpack and black gloves. And that footage is just absolutely worrisome in a lot of freaking ways. I do think that when I saw that footage, I thought, well, they should be pretty close. If they've got that, you can see a person, you can get a feel of what a person looks like. Maybe this thing is about to get to a point where it's wrapping. We're getting to the end of this story. And it turns out that that's not quite the case yet. We're still in a moment here where they don't seem to know who this individual is. There's a lot of speculating online, trying to ID who this person is, trying to ID his face with a mask on, which I think is all but impossible. And that mystery is still out there. This entire thing has been a mystery. This entire thing has been very difficult to process. What a person doesn't just disappear. At any rate, this is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live, and I suspect around 10 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Eastern will probably have, which would be 7 in the morning, of course, on the West Coast, probably have some sort of announcement. The law enforcement is saying they're going to make some sort of an announcement, haven't said what that announcement is. If it is a conclusion to this case, obviously they have to notify a bunch of people before saying anything, family members, etc. I doubt. I just have a weird feeling here that it's not a conclusion to this case. They're probably just going to update everybody on what was going on with the FBI storming a location not far from the house of Nancy Guthrie last night to probably obviously provide in a explanation for that, and an explanation for what was going on there. And I do think that I do think that they will likely update, but it doesn't right now. I don't see anything that indicates that there's a major break in the case. Before I go here, let me check Tom Winter one more time. Tom Winter has been one of the people breaking a lot of stuff, as has TMZ. TMZ has been really breaking a lot of stuff, And I guess some of it has been incorrect. They've had to go back and correct a few things, but that happens in a lot of these breaking cases where people lie, they give the wrong information, there's all sorts of drama. But I will let me just check TMZ and Tom Winter. They have been certainly at the forefront of finding things out before anybody, but they're probably, because they're on the East Coast, probably asleep. So I do think that when they get up at about an hour, I'm sure that that will be we'll hear an update from TMZ and we'll hear an update from Tom Winter, I suspect. This thing has been 24/7 for anybody covering it. I'm not sure how some of these people are getting any sleep because it is difficult, very difficult. That 400 tips, 4,000 tips. Yeah. So obviously the police are getting thousands of tips. That's not a surprise. Then they have to process the tips, which is extremely difficult. You have to have the man and woman power to process all the police tips, which is something I think people just, take for granted a little bit. And this is a situation where this is a case that clearly has caught the attention of the nation. I do see a lot of other stories too about missing persons popping up, and certainly people commenting that they wish that those cases would get the same amount of attention. Totally agree with that, but this is a unique situation, and it's definitely the two major things that get the attention is the age of the person missing, 84 years old, and of course who that person's daughter is, which of course is Savannah Guthrie. Obviously, life is not fair, but those are the reasons why this is getting a lot of attention. There's no doubt about that. And of course, Savannah Guthrie was supposed to be in Italy for the Winter Olympics, and of course, will not be, and has to deal with this family crisis. This is something that certainly is attention getting. And so NBC or MSNBC is not even talking about this. Maybe they were talking about it top of hour, but again, 4 a.m. on the West Coast, they will be, I suspect, that somewhere around 7 or 8 o'clock their time, 9, 10 o'clock East Coast time. I'm sure that they'll announce something explaining what was going on last night with the SWAT team moving in and all this drama that was seen last night. That was quite something. It would seem to me that there must have been a pretty hot lead to bring all that hardware out. But we don't know. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what is happening in terms of why that happened. We do see a bunch of law enforcement out there doing a bunch of investigating and taking pictures, all that type of jazz. So of course they are, but whether or not this is a break in the case is anybody's guess. Very hard to figure that out. And until they make an announcement, I suspect we won't know. Probably get a leak or something online. Let's face it. We do have UPUK News reporting. They reported this at 7:12 a.m. People detained in SWAT swarm on house near Nancy Guthrie neighborhood. A SWAT team descended on a house late Friday near Nancy Guthrie's Tucson area neighborhood and detained a man and a woman, according to reports. A man reportedly en route to the search scene was also detained during a traffic stop. Okay, so I mean, we don't know again what this all means. Are they the suspects? Are these the people? Those are the things that need to be answered, as everybody knows. There's this live feed going on, sort of a live feed, I would say pool camera, because everybody seems to have this shot in front of the neighborhood here, but I don't sense that this is as close as one might think. I keep seeing this shot over and over, and I don't think that they're that close. I just don't. Again, I think everybody should pay attention to Brian Enton. Brian Enton has been excellent. He is on the scene. He says he was actually in the perimeter last night, really by mistake. I think he was following a police vehicle and ended up in the perimeter. But if you look at the notes in this chat, you'll notice that there's some links to some of the people I referred to in this video. And some of those have to do with police radio transmissions and things that are kind of interesting that can kind of bring you closer to the scene. Please hit the like button. I really appreciate it. The story, unfortunately, appears to be going on. It doesn't seem to be a major announcement. Looking at the social media accounts of a lot of the people who have been covering this from the scene and not from a distance like myself. And obviously, when you're on the scene, you would know a hell of a lot more than you would from the distance. Again, this is a police radio scanner link. I'm going to put it back. This is somebody put up a police radio scanner, which is actually a very interesting idea. Obviously, when there's police traffic and stuff going on, this thing is going to blow up and get real loud. But if people want to take a look at this is obviously Tucson, Arizona, or listen to this. I have got the link in the chat to the police radio scanner. This is obviously YouTube, and again, people have got various live feeds and various shots of what's going on here, but no conclusion, no announcement from law enforcement, no confirmation of what this is about, and no real detail from law enforcement yet as to what happened last night in terms of all the police activity. And so people are waiting for that announcement to find out what was going on. It does involve a Range Rover. We do know that. We also know that the Range Rover has been tracked down to some sort of a dealership or a used car place, because it does have dealer tags on it. Yeah, so there being a 3-hour difference between where I am on the East Coast and Tucson, Arizona, I would imagine that they're obviously in the middle of the night out there at 4 a.m. I would imagine that in about 3 hours, they will have something that they announce. But who knows? Again, a lot of attention on the Range Rover, and somebody did catch that the Range Rover has a dealer tag on it. And, people are now researching that car, that vehicle. They did have the back hatch open. When they had the back hatch open, they had two sheriffs or two members of law enforcement community holding up a tarp to block whatever they were doing back there. It did have the kind of the feeling of, oh man, that might be something really bad, but you didn't see a coroner's vehicle. I'm not saying you have to see that, but that to me is the telltale sign that they found somebody that's not alive, obviously. So that I don't see that in any of the video yet. Some of these videos, of course, are really tight and really good morning. This is really tight footage. You can't really see too much other than a bunch of law enforcement personnel with FBI jackets on, and not a whole lot of detail. But there is reports on some of the networks that there will be some sort of an announcement. Yes, good morning. It is early in the morning. And that can I confirm that? Well, what we're hearing is that SWAT descended on a house near the home of Nancy Guthrie They descended, whether they went in. Apparently, one of the people who was apprehended, according to one of the local news stations, was just somebody who went through a red light near the scene. So that probably had nothing to do with anything. But the news is that a man and a woman have been taken into custody. That sounds like they did go into the house, although I have no specific confirmation that they went into the house. I doubt that they found these people outside at 2 in the morning or 1 in the morning. So they probably did go into their house. There is some reporting on Fox News of a specific warrant for this action, for this police action. So they probably did have the permission from a judge to enter the property. What that was based on, we don't know. Clearly, they probably, had some probable cause. They probably did have a tip. I'm sure they didn't, pick this out of thin air. The police probably received a tip. And no problem. And, thank you for watching. It's very early in the morning. I'm on the East Coast and it's 7:36 a.m. At any rate, I'm sure that law enforcement got the warrant from a judge somewhere in the middle of the night, and they went to this location and they went and checked it out, and they found what they found. And you can see the photos of them investigating what they found. Obviously, there's a Range Rover involved. There's a specific vehicle involved that they have checked out. They probably have somebody that they're questioning in custody. I don't know if I want to say in custody, but the police can only hold people without arrest for a certain limited period of time. You can't hold people forever without an arrest. And so, again, that's one of the reasons why we would find out whether or not these are the suspects or what's going on or how much probable cause they had to arrest. Obviously we want to hear that from law enforcement. We don't want that confirmed from law enforcement, but there are some telltale signs. You'll remember this week, there was a man that was picked up who wasn't the guy. And you saw what happened there. They had him for a specific amount of time. Then they had to let him go. You had to either arrest the person and charge them with something, or you have to let him go. And when they let him go, he ended up on the media saying, hey, I have no idea what the heck just happened. They came into the house, they did this, they did that, and hey, I'm not the guy. But again, they can only hold individuals for a limited period of time. So if the people that they are questioning or whose home they arrived at last night are in custody, then they can't be in custody forever if they are not suspects. So that is something that has got to be watched out for. You're going to see people getting released. And I can assure you that some of the folks that are on the ground know exactly where these people are being questioned, and will show up where those people are being questioned and wait for them to walk out the door to question them as to what just happened. And hey, the police come over to your house last night. Well, what happened? What did they do? How did they question you? What did they ask? All that's going to happen. And particularly if you're innocent, you're probably going to come out just like the guy the other day. He came out, and remember, his name was put online and put out there in the media as a suspect in this case. Now, of course, we now know that this person is innocent and had nothing to do with anything. But that type of blow up, and you're innocent, you are probably going to go to a camera and say, I'm innocent. I have absolutely no idea what this is about, just like that gentleman did this week. And I suspect that if it's the same thing with this, that'll happen as well. There is something that kind of my spidey sense is telling me that this is more than just, they didn't just get the SWAT team out for nothing. And they didn't just wake up a judge in the middle of the night for a warrant for nothing. I do have a sneaking feeling that this lead is probably something bigger than the thing that happened earlier this week. And, the police understand that when they get the wrong person and it's on news across the country that you had the wrong person, and then the wrong person is talking to the media saying, hey, I'm innocent and I have no idea what just happened, they certainly don't want to repeat that again. So I suspect that, and all the tips they're getting, which is into the thousands, imagine having to process thousands of tips on a kidnapping case, an alleged kidnapping case. Like you don't really know what is important, what isn't, but at the same time, you have to go through them. And that is a daunting job. I'm sure that they have all the local law enforcement community members involved in having to comb through the tips. But combing through the tips is a job in itself, particularly when those tips are into the thousands. We know at the beginning of this case that people like to play games, right? We had that incident with TMZ reporting on a fake ransom note, and then the FBI had chased down the people with the fake ransom note. So people play games, So some of these tips are going to not be legit, but then that tip that is the one that breaks the case may be in there, and probably is in there. People see a lot of things, and they, people stay up late at night and all that, and you get a tip in there that is the one that breaks the case, but you got to go through so many to get to that one. And then which ones do you run down and which ones do you leave behind? I know that as a journalist, being in journalism is kind of the same thing. You run down a lot of rabbit holes that don't lead anyplace. But for law enforcement, the good thing about law enforcement is that they have the power to do things that most people can't. The subpoena power, the warrant power, the search warrant power, the power to stop people in question. They have a lot of powers that allow them to get to the truth a lot quicker than any other force in society. Now that you have two agencies, you have the FBI and you have the local police involved, it would seem to me somebody's got to break something. Somebody in that neighborhood probably saw something, although there is a lot of land around the house of Nancy Guthrie. There's a ton of land around that house. So, it's not like houses right next to each other and they all have Ring cameras and you can pick things up on the Ring camera from door to door. You don't have that. You don't have that advantage, but you did have the camera at Nancy Guthrie's house that showed the guy at the door with the ski mask. So you at least had that camera. And we did find out again that Nest is in fact keeping our footage. I mean, in this case, you say to yourself, okay, no problem, because this is trying to help solve a crime. So, the loss of civil liberties is kind of forgiven for this moment, but it is something interesting to learn that Nest is keeping everybody's footage. And that's something that company has denied in the past. Oh, we're not keeping the footage. Well, they are keeping the footage. But again, if this footage leads to an apprehension of a suspect, we are going to be glad that they kept the footage. So I don't want to get, too far into that, but that is an interesting thing to know about. Yeah, I mean, I've heard this sentiment. Yeah, I've heard this sentiment that all missing persons have not gotten the same level of attention. And we understand that the media operates on web traffic and on ratings. And when you have the alleged kidnapping, we don't know what happened here, but the alleged kidnapping of a prominent news journalist, Savannah Guthrie, who's been on the air for, I think, almost 20 years. I mean, you are going to have more media attention. It's just the reality of the situation. Is it fair? Of course, it's not fair. We learn in life is that life is not fair. And it is something that is definitely a glaring thing here. I've seen a lot of people put out flyers of missing people during this case online, and I do feel like that is a good point. It's just the reality of the society that we live in. And it is something that is unfortunate, but it's just what it is. Okay. So yeah, the cops did arrest somebody and let somebody go. This could be the same thing, and I'm not jumping to conclusions. I have no idea. Nobody knows what's going on right now. They're investigating. Like, we got to know from the police, and we got to wait for the police to tell us. We will, though. You will see rumors. There will be rumors that will come out online. Some of them will be accurate. And again, TMZ has been pretty spot on. TMZ has been, I would say, 80 to 90% of the time, TMZ has been accurate. The other one that I look at, of course, is Tom Winter over at NBC. He gets a lot of really good tips that end up being accurate in the story. But I would say, yeah, the cops did arrest somebody and let him go this week, and that was not good. That was not good. His name was all over the place, all online, this and that. The way that it came out was not cool. And he gets arrested, and he's got to stand in his doorway and tell everybody, I have no idea what the heck is going on, which was true. So there was that. Yeah. I do think, around the 10 o'clock hour Eastern, we should have something. And we will see what happens next. There's not too much more to say, so I think I'm going to bounce. Everybody, please hit the like button. This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. Enjoyed everybody watching. Enjoy the questions. I wish I had more answers. There's not a whole lot of answers in this case. and there's not a whole lot of updates by the police in this case. I'd like to thank Brian Enton, who's a true crimer out there online on YouTube. He has been providing some really good reporting, just by being on the scene and saying, hey, I see this, I see that. He's also been very careful not to reveal so much that he messes up law enforcement, or messes up what they're doing. Like, he's not revealing his exact locations and stuff like that because, the bad guys are watching. There's no way that the people who did this are not watching these YouTube channels. Because if you watch Brian Enton, you would know a lot. You'd know more from him than you would local TV. And so Brian Enton is one of the good. He's a really good true crimer who's out there with a really good channel. And I'll put the link in the chat for his channel. He's been very careful about not saying too much, particularly when he's live, because anybody could be watching that, and of course the criminals could be watching that. But he's been really good. He's been right up there with TMZ, and I would encourage people to watch his channel because I suspect he'll be going live probably another hour or two. At some point, somebody does have to actually sleep. I don't know how he's doing it because he was on late last night, about 2 or 3 hours ago, which his time was 4 in the morning. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning when he came up live. That's hard to do. And then you got to get up, you got to get back up. Obviously, if the police, there is some, rumoring that the police are going to make some sort of an announcement or going to do a presser or something, or put out a statement. I think what it was put out a statement. I mean, if they put out a statement, it's kind of just like, okay. But I think they're tight-lipped for a reason, but they have the responsibility to investigate without giving up too much information. And, there is a lot of speculation that somebody's dead at the scene. For example, 3 people detained and 1 is dead at the scene. We don't know. 3 people detained as SWAT team descends on home near Nancy Guthrie's house. This is in the New York Post. There's a neighbor saying that somebody's deceased. 3 people detained doesn't really outline that one way or the other. Neighbor says 1 dead and 3 detained. So that's a different piece of information. Again, when reports come out like this, when something happens, there's always some inaccuracy. There's always something that is not completely accurate in these first reports. It happens all the time in all sorts of stories. So you kind of have to be careful about, what's being first reported. People are rushing to report. People are going on rumor sometime. I mean, literally going on rumor. And you don't know. And how does the neighbor know what happened in there? That's hard to know. The police is really the only real source in here. Thanks for hitting the like button, everybody out there. Really appreciate it. But the police are not doing, like daily updates. Again, I don't know that I would expect that, because in the course of investigating crime, I think it's very hard to be, okay, we're going to do daily updates. Well, you're going to get questions. And when you get questions, this is what I was reading a few minutes ago. So this was like just the YouTube feed. I just typed in SWAT team as the search, and you can see that there's a lot of traffic about, there's something in here about a neighbor that is saying that the neighbor says that somebody's deceased, but this is from Gateway Pundit. Gateway Pundit is not exactly the most reliable thing in the world. So we do have the New York Post reporting. Let me see. 3 people detained as SWAT team descends on house. These are the early morning reports of people getting up in the morning and finding out what's going on. 3 people detained as SWAT team descended on home near Nancy Guthrie's house. 3 people detained. SWAT team surrounds home. Okay. So again, these are the first reports of the morning. Again, it's 7:48. It's almost 8 a.m. on the East Coast. It's going to take a few hours for everybody to get their act together on the West Coast and wake up. But there is reports all over the place that 2 people have been taken into custody. And again, whether or not that's a break in this case, in terms of these are the people, I don't know. Who knows? We don't know. We don't know until law enforcement shows up and tells us what the heck is going on here. Written statement. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thank you for telling me this. Yeah. So CNN said they were going to give a written statement. They changed their mind. Yeah, that I thought I did hear that on CNN. Something about a written statement. That sounds like I just feel like if there was a real big break in the case, um, you know, you're not doing a written statement. The FBI is going to come to the camera, have a press conference. There's going to be an announcement. You can have the local police there, and all the jurisdictional law enforcement actors would be standing there. There's not going to be a statement that comes out. Maybe they do a brief statement on, there was law enforcement activity. Who knows? I mean, who knows? But a written statement sounds to me like there is not a major break in the case. But I don't know. I don't know that. I mean, we can't confirm until they confirm. Why are we talking about this smoke screen? It's just to get people not to talk about the elites exposed to the Epstein files. Well, I don't know that this is a smoke screen. This story came up the same week as the Epstein files did come out, but it is a story. Epstein files are a story as well. But this is as well. The nature of the world that we live in is you have two stories colliding a lot. And this is a big story. I mean, this is a big story. And I will say that this story is a sad situation. I think anybody, obviously, if you have older parents, is going to capture your attention in a way that you might not expect, because this is not cool. It's an 84-year-old woman disappearing that's minding her own business at home is not cool. So this is definitely something I think that captures people's attention, not just because she's the mother of Savannah Guthrie, a well-known TV anchor, but it captures your attention if you have older parents, which a lot of Gen Xers do right now, and boomers as well. I know a few people have parents in their 90s that they're taking care of, that they're worried about all the time, that are located in states that they don't live in. And so that's always something that is there, I think, for a lot of people. And I think that's one of the reasons why this is, a thing. Okay, it's a big deal, to say the least. Anyway, I was talking about Brian Enton before. The link to the Brian Enton channel is in the chat. He's certainly covering this more comprehensively than I am because he is there on the scene. Not to make this into a Brian Enton commercial, but he and a lot of the other true crimers are finding out a lot of really good information in real time, and they're reporting in real time from the scene. They're doing a really good job of it. I encourage people to watch him and so many others, and it really does show you how much work one person can do at a scene. It is pretty amazing. And that's about it for now. It's about 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I suspect there'll be some announcement. Hopefully it's good news. It is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Please hit the like button. I'm going to do one more check here of Tom Winter before I bounce, because Tom Winter has in fact been quite good, as has many others. But Tom Winter is the correspondent for NBC. He is the NBC News National Law Enforcement Intelligence correspondent. He gets leaked to all the time, and people tell him stuff. So he has been breaking a lot of news. Then we have TMZ. TMZ has done a very good job, actually, of being on top of a lot of news. And a lot of times they're the first to throw the stuff out there. And so everybody's watching TMZ. They have not updated at least not their X account, in about, it looks like about 10 hours or so. So again, I believe I don't know where TMZ, they might be in California. They actually might be West Coast or East Coast and West Coast. Tom Winter puts up updates by the Phoenix FBI. Actually, let's go to the Phoenix FBI. Why haven't I gone to that? We are looking at Phoenix FBI. Okay, they did the backpack. They're doing a search, blah, blah. So, they haven't updated their page either. I'm sure they'll update at some point. That may be in the law enforcement statement that maybe CNN is referring to. But right now, everything is kind of what I would say kind of in limbo in terms of, we know that the SWAT team has been out there. We know that a lot of police vehicles out there, but we don't know why. We don't know who they descended on. We don't know who is in custody. We don't know why. We don't know anything other than what we can see on the videos of them rushing out there to see what the heck is going on. Again, Mrs. Brian Enton investigates, and you can see sheriff's office videos. It's raining out there, and then we see a Range Rover. A lot going on here. We don't know if this is it, if this is the break in the case, if this is what is going to lead to the apprehension of the people who made Nancy Guthrie disappear 14 days ago. And it's incredible to think that this 14 days into this story, there was something in my mind, I'm not sure what, but there was something in my mind that thought this is going to be wrapped fairly quickly, because I don't know how you hide another individual for very long. And there's a lot of complications in terms of you can't hide an individual, particularly a deceased individual, for very long. There's going to be clues, there's going to be hints, there's going to be something. And I know that there are remote parts of the country, deserts, etc., where certain things can happen. But again, we live in a society now of surveillance, cameras all over the place, and it's getting almost impossible to get away with anything this big. Making a person disappear is a big deal, you know. And I just think that, in my mind, I thought this would be wrapped before 14 days. And that's something that really just, I'm a little surprised. I am from New York, and my father was in law enforcement in New York, and so part of me is a little bit spoiled because New York has such a big police department and such a big, obviously a bunch of thousands of detectives in the ranks, and a department of over 40,000 cops. So things get solved very quickly, but New York is a different place, very densely populated, and it's very much the case that when a crime happens, somebody does see something very quickly and it's solved very quickly. They have the resources to do that. I think Pima County certainly doesn't have those same type of resources. That's one of the reasons it's taking a long time. When you look at the house of Nancy Guthrie, the overhead, it's a big house, but it's kind of not like in a neighborhood where the houses are right next to each other. So I think one of the reasons why this hasn't been solved pretty quickly is simply that you don't have that dense population density, and people seeing things late at night. You don't have that same element. So I think no fault of the police per se. These things are really hard to find. This is a haystack needle type situation. I don't want to get into blaming law enforcement, although there does seem to be some sort of tension going on between local police and federal police. That's not a new story. That's not breaking news. You know, who's in charge of an investigation is not breaking news. But at any rate, this has been going on for a while. I think people certainly want a conclusion, and hopefully it's not a sad one. And it's difficult to think about what you do when you do have older parents. And yeah, this is someone commenting on the Ring camera situation. And as somebody who has a parent that's about the same age as 75, I will say that monthly cloud service saves the video. Yeah, it's interesting. So the Ring camera system, certainly have a lot of friends that have the Ring camera system. I do not. It's just interesting. Nancy Guthrie's house has the Nest camera, and it has been reported, of course, that the footage. She did not have the account. I thought it was reported she did not have the account that saves the footage, but you can just observe the door, and we find out, in fact, that they're looking at footage from weeks ago and weeks ago. So now we're finding out that, whoa, the Nest system is saving the footage, and we didn't know that. But again, if it solves the crime, everybody will cheer it, despite the civil liberties questions therein. Yeah, I'm waiting for certain people to wake up as well. I'm waiting for a lot of people to wake up who cover this case much more closely than I do. And Dexter and Walter White, yeah, there are a lot of people out here who are covering this case in a very comprehensive way, and doing a very good job of it. And again, people who are on the scene in Tucson, in Pima County, and we do. People do want a resolution, and obviously they want a happy resolution. But as the days go on, that gets harder to believe. And it's got to be terrible for the Guthrie family. I should have said this a lot earlier in this 1 hour live feed. Imagine the pressure, and imagine the imagine the pressure of it. I mean, just the losing a family member's missing. You don't know where they are. It's an older family member. It's hard. I mean, I think it's just a hard thing. When I think about it, it makes me nervous just thinking about it. Like, it's just a terrible situation for that family. And of course, some of the videos that they've put out have been pretty gut wrenching. They are struggling, obviously, with this, and you know, it's a difficult situation. I mean, it's just a really difficult situation, and not knowing is a killer, absolute killer, and their entire lives have to stop for this, and that is hard, and I'm kind of starting to wonder why this is taking so long to solve, but it is difficult. You're searching for a person in a town of thousands of people, and you don't have too much evidence other than the ski mask guy at the door, and you really can't get a good look at him. uh it's hard. I mean, I asked myself, if I was searching for somebody, and you're searching and you're trying to find that person, how do you find them? I mean, how do you find them? um this is a difficult situation. This is the clip of the sheriff that was so much on TV at the beginning of the story, and then suddenly disappeared. But last night he did a one-on-one interview. He did a one-on-one interview with local media, Tucson KVOA TV. And I think everybody was surprised that we haven't seen him in days, and now all of a sudden he is saying. Yeah, so yeah, that absolutely. If you live within a 2 mile radius, I'm sure that they're looking at your video, and they should be able to pick something up. Uh, uh, I don't know why I can't write the words. Please hit the like button. I messed that up twice in the chat. But thanks for hitting the like button. But anyway, back to the news here. This is a gut wrenching story. Um, it's a it's a hard story to um, it's a hard story to put together. A missing persons case of a famous person, an older person, and nobody can find that person for a 14-day period. And now here we are at February 14, and this person has been missing since February 1st. This is a case that people want to know details to. We're not getting a whole lot from the media, from the police, from law enforcement officials, which, by the way, I think is understandable. They're in the midst of trying to solve a crime, so your first priority is not going to be doing press conferences, and answering questions that might actually mess the case up, and then, you know, the bad guy sees you on TV. Like, you don't need that. You don't need any of that. You need this thing to be solved, and you need no one to know what you're doing. If you're law enforcement trying to solve this thing, you don't need to be doing press. So I totally, I get the fact that they can't be doing press conferences every 20 minutes. At the same time, it's been a few days. It has been a number of days. They caught the wrong dude, and then the guy that they caught does a press conference, says, "Hey, I have no idea what the heck they were doing, and I don't know why they stopped me, and they messed up my house, and blah blah." I mean, it was not a cool scene there. That was actually pretty crazy what happened with that guy. I'm really not trying to show any footage of him or bring up his name, because I think his name you know, has been out there enough, and he might actually have a lawsuit when it comes to that, because his name was out there, and it was not an easy name to pronounce. It wasn't like John Smith or something like that, but it was out there. It's an easy name to search because it was a slightly unusual name. And I'm just saying I'm sure the police don't want to have a repeat of that incident, because that was a kind of a mess there. So I get that they're out there running around trying to catch somebody, right? And when you're running around trying to catch somebody, you're not going to be doing press conferences. At the same time, it'd be nice to have more information in this case, and certainly when you have a SWAT raid that happens overnight, there should definitely be an update coming. And I would say it should be more than a piece of paper, but maybe they don't have the communications director, communications person. They should have a public relations, PIO officer. Most departments do. We're not seeing that at all. I just think they want to really remain quiet because they don't want to tip anything off to the bad guys, to the criminals who made all this happen, and to this idiot who's on the porch with his ski mask and gloves. Okay, so I do think that that's probably why they're not saying anything, like nothing. Okay, because in the past when we've seen cops not say anything, that's usually the reason. The reason is usually that, okay, we don't want to say anything to tip off the bad guys, and then they have an advantage. Okay, totally understood. Totally understood. We definitely, I think everybody can understand that, but man, it's killer waiting to get answers. Waiting to get accurate information is hard, because this is definitely a case that it's a mystery and a true crime case, obviously all rolled up into one, and it is difficult to it's difficult to watch. I'm not sure what the day is going to hold for this, but I would suspect somewhere around 10 a.m. Eastern, know something. Probably put out a statement. That'd be 7 o'clock Tucson time. And I want to thank everybody for listening. It's been about an hour and 15 minutes, and really an hour and 15 minutes of me vamping because I don't really know a whole lot of facts here. And I hate that. I hate the fact that there's not a whole lot of facts that I can confirm. I'm nowhere near the scene. I'm on the East Coast. Really relying on so many of the true crimers out there who do a really good job covering. I've put their links. I put one of the links in the description. That'd be Brian Enton, but he's not the only one. But of course, TMZ has done a good job, and Tom Winter has done a very good job, actually, of reporting on this case. They're doing a really good job of just telling us what the heck's going on when nobody knows what's going on. So incrementally, TMZ certainly has gotten all the videos and everything else that's been going on that have been released by the police and getting it to the public. That, of course, is being pushed out too by law enforcement. But taking one last look at social media here, I don't see anything new. I do have a few people informing me that the people looking at the pool yesterday were just cleaning the pool. They were cleaning the pool. Okay. I do think that they were probably doing a little bit more than that because there was a law enforcement person standing there. But, who knows? They probably checking something out. But this is a case that continues. I am noting here that NBC, of course, NBC is now untethered from MS. So MS Now and NBC don't have anything to do with each other. But it was interesting when they opened the show, they didn't spend too much time on this, which kind of tells me that there may not be any real news. So I don't know. We don't really know what's going on here. Again, some tight shots of the FBI early this morning in Tucson, Arizona, checking out the back of a Range Rover and doing some sort of investigation. We don't know what they were doing. Hard to confirm. And everyone is waiting to find that out this morning. This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. And I'll probably be back later today if something breaks. I'll wait for some facts to come in before I get out here and have to vamp for an hour. And it's been an hour and 20 minutes. But everybody's just waiting. Everybody's just waiting to see what's going on here. And it's very hard to know any facts without law enforcement's confirmation. Live only a few miles away. This is Michelle Martin. Thank you for watching. Live only a few miles away from where SWAT went in. It's now eerily quiet, but was very busy last night. Thanks, Michelle. Somebody again on the scene. Again, I'm not on the scene. I'm on the East Coast, and it's 8 a.m. here. So I only know what has been reported by others and who are much closer. And once again, I would advise everybody to check out Mr. Enton, who's he's really good. True crimer. There's a few true crimers out there who are quite good and are reporting very responsibly. But in the end, this is a human story. of a family who has a missing person. One of the most frustrating situations you could ever have a older relative who's not accounted for, and it's not a dementia case, it's nothing like that. It's just a very frustrating situation that everybody's hoping has a happy ending, but this is something that is kind of a nightmare for any family. So shout out to the Guthrie family, and obviously this is incredibly difficult to deal with. This is Lauren Burke, finally about to sign off. I know I've signed off like 3 times now. At any rate, I'm going to roll the outro to my show. Thanks everybody for listening. Please hit the like button. I really appreciate it. Maybe back later in the day if there are some facts that come out that are confirmed by law enforcement. I want to thank everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. This is Lauren Burke, Lauren Live.
Somewhere. What's going on? Thank you. Are you watching now?
Yeah. No, I was watching when I left, but it's excellent. I love it. I love the traffic's blowing up. You were in Brooklyn last night. Where?
I was in Bushwick.
Okay, my grandmother's house is in Crown Heights.
Oh, yeah.
So when I saw you, I was trying to look at what the pizza place was to see where
As soon as we got there, someone recognized the pizza place. They're like, we got to get out of here. Someone had
get out. It was great.
blown up our spot.
That show was freaking fantastic.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it, man. Love it.